As the heir apparent, Nicolas Maduro, came before the Venezuelan people yesterday, he was not surrounded by civil society. He was not surrounded by the working class voters and supporters of Chavez, but he gathered a close group of members of the cabinet and the military. Absent were the legislators. Absent were members of the Supreme Court. And with this group of people around him, he declares that a military-civilian leadership will now assume control. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that we are going to have elections with the military taking part? Does this mean that there will be no elections? And so this uncertainty breeds a degree of concern in the international community and probably among many Venezuelans who were not calling Chavez a saint. This is an opportunity to withdraw one of the barriers to relations with Cuba, namely to take Cuba off the terrorism list. This would indicate to the Cuban government that we are not obstinate on every issue. It would indicate to the Castro brothers that there's a certain flexibility in the U.S. relationship. Therefore, Cuba may have less reason to insist that the Venezuelan government, its close friends, be obdurate with the United States. There is the opportunity generated out of Washington to start easing the relationship and introducing a degree of flexibility. When Chavez came to power in 1998, the Venezuelan oil company produced 3.3 million barrels per day, of which 2.7 were exported. As of December 2012, 2.5 months ago, the oil company PDVSA produces 2.4 million barrels a day. In other words, there is just a significant decrease. And of that, less than 1 million is sold on the international market. The remainder is used, and forgive me for looking down to read my notes that I've made, 800,000 goes to internal consumption. We've got new homes, we're handing out electrical goods, social programs, as well as any other payments which the President and his government wish to make. 300 go to pay off the Chinese investments. 100 pays for the importation of gasoline because Venezuelan crude is a very heavy variety, and so a lighter crude is needed. And 300 goes to Petrocaribe, that is subsidized oil which goes principally to the Caribbean countries, and a third of that goes to Cuba. So the next government does not have that much oil to sell on the open market and to produce the income necessary to create the reserves, to create the stability that the IMF would like to have. I believe that the commitment to socialist principles will continue. I believe that a strong policy of distribution will be maintained. But you have to have something to distribute. And we come back to the economic problem. So long as there is sufficient income from the oil to pay for the construction of low-income housing, the payment of teachers, social goods, there is no problem. But with a dwindling of the resources from oil, Venezuela doesn't have many alternatives to produce the income with which to distribute to working class Venezuelans. We get down to numbers. We get down to economic basics.